Welcome back to Morning Express. It's time now to discuss the issues making the rounds across the pages of the newspapers. Joining us virtually to lend his thoughts as we expand the focus on our conversation is the president of the Nigerian Nexus, Patriot Fowobi Desmond. Hello, comrade. Welcome to the program.
Good morning, Bito. It's good to be here with you this morning.
It's always a pleasure. Let's pick up from one of the biggest stories making the rounds, especially for the fact that it has garnered a lot of mixed reactions. The president's recent visit to the Caribbeans, in which he's in St. Lucia. Labour Party presidential candidate Mr. Peter Obi has criticized the president, saying it's a vacation amid a time of hunger and insecurity, whilst the presidency has replied that the purpose of the visit is to strengthen Nigeria's diplomatic ties with Caribbean countries. What do you make of this development?
First of all, it is a norm among presidents, especially African descent, to travel to different parts of the world in order to strengthen bilateral and cooperation. It has always been a norm. It has always been a tradition. It is not something that is supposed to generate certain controversies or heat arguments. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has said that his government is working hard to influence direct investment, foreign direct investments to the country. And ever since his inception as the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, he has traveled to different countries in and outside Africa to strengthen that bilateral cooperation.
Now Patriot Desmond, whilst that is very correct, it is the timing of the trip that has elicited much reactions, particularly with the spate of killings across the Middle Belt states. And hence you see these conversations on the timing of the traveling. Is the timing a big issue as it seems?
Bito, let's get something clear and straight. The president has traveled to Benue State in the wake of this event of killings, the Yellow Waters and some other killings in the North Central. The president has directed the security apparatus to be ahead and on top of the game in prosecuting this insurgency and this madness that is going on there. The president has charged all the necessary security apparatus to do the needful. He has charged that there has to be synergy among all security agencies in the country. And in the wake of that, I have seen high-leveled counter-terrorism team of the Federal Republic of Nigeria that included the NSA, the Minister of Interior, and the security chiefs that took place in Abuja just last week in order to unravel what could be the cause of some of the violence, conflict in the North Central and the killings, the senseless killings, and how to curb it. Now, the chief of defense staff had spoken on national media on so many occasions and linking some of the financing of this terrorism in Nigeria to foreign countries. So would it not be wise and proper for the president to travel outside the country in order to understand how to cope? You know, sometimes the president will not sit with us to tell us that this is exactly what he has gone to do there, or the meeting is having there until when it started yielding positive results. For me, there is so much more presently in the country that the opposition party led by Peter Gregory Obi should focus on, instead of discussing the timing of the visit of the president to either St. Lucia, Germany, London, St. Petersburg, or Rome. This is not time for discussing issue that has no value to national development or growth. For me, I was thinking when I was reading the news, even when Bayo Ononuga, the spokesperson to the president, was reacting to this call by Peter Obi, for me, in my mind, as I was reading that press release, I was imagining what has this opposition turned themselves to. There are a lot of things that Peter Obi and other opposition in the country should be talking about, and not the president's travels.
Now
the president does not travel with all the machineries of the federal government. The federal government exists in Abuja. The federal government exists in the country. Only the president traveled outside the country to explore foreign corporation and other things. And the timing should not be a bone of contention, in the sense that the chief of the defense staff said that we need to curb some of this violent conflict in Nigeria from outside, because some of their sponsors are outside. So you never can tell whether the travel of Mr. President to St. Lucia can in one way add to unraveling where the sponsor of this counter-terrorism. And don't forget that Nigeria has a strong tie with this Caribbean.
Now Patriot Desmond, on the ties, this is the first time a Nigerian president is visiting St. Lucia, making it historic. But the big question is on the expectations, because when you look at St. Lucia, their population is less than 180,000 people. Their mainstay is tourism and agriculture, particularly they export bananas. What are your expectations from this historic visit, being that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is the first president to embark on such a visit to St. Lucia?
I tell you, with the level of information at the disposal of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, I can tell you sincerely, categorically, that his trip to St. Lucia is very, very timely. It is very, very important. Like you rightly put it, is historical. Historical in the sense that this is the first time ever that any Nigerian president will be traveling to St. Lucia for any form of, whether tourism, for visit, for cooperation, and for business expansion. So let's watch out and see what this visit will in turn add to our national growth and development. So for me, we need to wait and see the result of this visit.
So you don't have any expectations at the time, we just need to wait and see?
I don't have the expectation, because I am not the one who advised Mr. President to visit St. Lucia. But what I know is that his advisors must have done their feasibility studies. There may be some other things that Nigeria can offer that country in terms of exports. And there may be also some things that Nigeria can import from that country that is unknown to some of us until when Mr. President gives us a proper account of his visit to St. Lucia.
Now, I'm talking about accounts. The latest statistics from the Debt Management Office showed that at the end of March 2025, Nigeria's debt burden had skyrocketed to over $124.4 trillion. Now, this is happening at a time when there are currently shortfalls in our revenue projections, especially with the volatility of the global oil market. There are more concerns by Nigerians on how we intend to manage this, owing to the fact that concurrently there are two budget cycles running under the National Assembly, and we're yet to execute the 2024 budget. Do you also share this fiscal concerns over the state of our debt burden?
Bitu, you see, for me, one thing we must appreciate is that this government has tried as much as possible to dwindle down its appetite for foreign loan and foreign loan borrowing. And this government have prioritized looking inwardly to see how they can generate enough revenue to fund their budgets. This is not the first time we're talking about the burden of debt. It has been a major challenge for the past 2 decades. There are times that IMF also, I think sometimes in the first quarter of this year, that also certified Nigeria to be free from any form of foreign loan.
They talked about the COVID-19 loans, that it had been repaid, not loans in general, just the COVID-19 loans.
Yes, that is what I'm trying to say, that part of our loan, the one associated with COVID-19, there was a report some few weeks back now that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has been able to clear off some of these debts. You see, what I'm trying to say is that I wouldn't want us as a country to dwell so much on the negativity that is surrounding or associated with our economy. Instead, we should focus on the positive strides that we are making as a country. And that is why I am trying to negate the fact that it is not a new thing that Nigeria has been an indebted country to some foreign countries as a form of borrowing and also investment. And some things that a lot of Nigerians do not understand is that what they hear is that loan. Some of the projects that you see, some of the road you see, they are financed from what? From borrowing, because of our revenue is low. Because of our revenue, the leadership of this country sometimes wants to bring in some infrastructure because they have attributed our lack of growth and development to lack of infrastructure.
And Patriot Desmond, don't get me wrong, I have no issues with the borrowing of the government. The concerns Nigerians are raising are that this is the first time that the government is failing to maintain a budget cycle due to shortfalls. The 2024 budget, that is the budget for last year, had an extension of 1 month to June, and despite that extension, the shortfall still were not being able to be curbed, and it's been extended running into 2025 and putting the 2025 budget into much concerns. This is where the concerns are coming from, not that the government is borrowing, but the fact that despite the borrowing, project funding is still not executed in a budget circle. Do you see genuinity in these concerns?
There is no way you will not be faced with that challenge of trying to mismatch and balance your financing with your budgeting and completing the circle when you do not generate enough revenue. Let me tell you, you will appreciate the president, you will appreciate the government when you get into the circle, when you have a meeting with the Minister of Finance, you have a meeting with the CBN governor, you have the meeting with the president.
But Desmond, how many Nigerians can have the privilege of such meetings? The news on the street is that fuel subsidy has been removed and should translate into more money on the part of government to be able to carry out this project.
You and I know very well that I don't want to speak negatively about the way our budget is being funded in this country. Sometimes you see that the government of the country, I don't know the reason for over-projecting, overshooting their budget. The country does not have the capacity to finance its budget. I tell you this sincerely. Instead of giving us 30-something trillion budget, 20-something trillion budget, it will also be a national embarrassment if we are still playing with 10 trillion budget or 6 trillion budget. It will not translate into hope. Don't forget that this government came on board on a mantra of hope. And part of the hope is to portray our budget to be doing well. What this government has been trying to do in the last 2 years is to portray this government to be doing well. But if you go inside, you will understand that seriously, the government is catching cold. Our economy is catching cold. We do not have what it takes to finance our budget. And that is why at the end of the cycle, the budget does not perform up to 90% or even 80%. I have said it before in this studio that 2023 budget, 2024 budget did not meet the performance, they did not meet up with its performance up to a certain percentage, up to 65%. But the government have been trying to cover it up because the government wants to achieve something that I know. What the government wants to achieve is to send a signal of renewed hope or hope. Let me just say hope. Hopeful. What the government is trying to do is they bring an hopeful budget that by hope they will be able to meet up with the budget cycle.
Now, Patriot Desmond, there's nothing wrong in having this hope. It's good to be hopeful, but when these budgets were put on the table, most of the headlines, if you will remember, called the budget overly ambitious. It's a question of financial fiscal responsibility.
That's what I'm saying.
How do we ensure fiscal responsibility in this case, in budget implementation, knowing that we have these shortfalls in revenue? How do we go about ensuring fiscal responsibility in our budget implementation?
It is revenue. It is what? That's why the government must be strategic, innovative. And I am happy with the current bill, the tax reform bill, some of the bills, the tax reform bills, and some of the bills that the president just assented to just last week. Because there is a problem with our revenue generation. There is a serious problem with our revenue generation. Just like the president has said, by the way of removing the software subsidy and unification of our forest FS, is to tell you that Nigeria have been living a fake life. Nigeria has been living a fake life, and it is not something you can cure in one day or in 1 year. It has to be systematic. Why we all understand that it is a problem that we have an over-ambitious budget, but you cannot completely come on board now as President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and then because you want to do something straight and you want to be straightforward, and then return Nigeria back to 6 trillion budget or 7 trillion budget to say that this is what Nigeria is generating, this is what Nigeria is meeting. And that is why you see that when they do this over-ambitious budget, they go in to different countries to see how they can finance that budget, because what we are generating as a country is not enough to finance this budget.
Now, the other narrative is the narrative of saying that certain MDAs have overshot their targets. Last year, we're all told that the Nigerian Customs Service overshot its targeted revenue expectations. So did the FIRS and other tax collection revenues agencies of government. Why is it that these monies that have overshot targets are not channeled into capital projects? Instead, we're seeing where we're talking about increased allocation for states.
Do you need anybody to tell you that? Just like when they say they recovered loot, they recovered this loot, and even me, I've always asked this question: where is the money? Sometimes this is part of the fake life I am talking about, and I think government needs to have an holistic meeting with all its parasasta, the MDAs. This fake life, I call it propaganda of government in order to manage certain crisis or situation or to project the country, is affecting us. The truth is, this government is trying to use propaganda, and that is why FIRS will tell you that they generated 10 trillion, whereas what is on paper is 3 trillion. What is on paper is 2 trillion. This government will come out and tell you they've generated so amount of billion, they've made so amount of billion, just because they want to portray President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's government as that one that is already on the right track. But in reality, it does not translate into it. Go to the ministries, where are the money? Go to the ministries, only few ministries street is performing in Nigeria. And it is not the fault of this minister. It is the fault of the availability of funds to finance budget. See, sincerely speaking, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu government has not delivered yet the dividend of democracy, but the government is just trying. It's trying out of every opportunity. It is trying. This government can be rated as a trying government. This government is trying. This government have the intention, but the resources to translate is they are trying into feasible results that Nigerian can upload is not there. And then you need nobody to tell you that what you are asking me, you know the answer already. That what the government is trying to do is to portray it as a government that is achieving results and is in the right direction. And that is the area of politics that we need to correct in this country. In reality, most of the budgeting, most of the projects we are doing today, they are still financed through this bilateral agreement, borrowing, financing from foreign direct investment and all that. The country, I don't know what is happening to us, maybe because of the shortfall in agricultural produce, maybe because of lack of employment opportunity to the young people, and lack of proper exploration of our marine economy, our mines, solid minerals and mines sector. This government needs to be creative to generate real money, not audio money. What this government has been generating and has been announced by these MDAs and agencies of government is audio money.
Now, Patriot Desmond, let's move on to another issue in the news this morning. Whilst the issues on debates of budget implementation are one of concern, the more pressing issue is our maintenance culture as a country. You're someone who travels quite frequently across Nigeria's major highways. FEMA, the agency saddled with the maintenance of these road infrastructures that have already been constructed, have been questioned a number of times by Nigerians as to if they are performing on their mandate. This is in line with over 500 billion naira maintenance deficits that are non-available funds to maintain these roads. My questions are in two parts. One, how would you assess FEMA's performance? And secondly, you had mentioned the loots, of which Mariam Abacha came out to say that the so-called Abacha loots have been relooted. So those are my two questions to you, sir.
Thank you for this, for talking about this. This is what really concerns the Nigerian people, especially the masses. Quite often, like you rightly put it, I travel a lot. In average of a month, I travel to 6-7 states in Nigeria, and most of those trips, because there are no connecting flights to some places, you have to use the road. So I use Nigerian Federal Road very well, and I can tell you categorically that Nigerian road has never been this bad since I have been traveling for the past 18 years. This is the worst time ever that FEMA has neglected their responsibility, and I don't know the reason. This is the first time that our roads are completely degenerated to become dead trap. The only thing that is curbing accidents, incessant accidents, is the number of checkpoints on the road. These checkpoints on the road are the human factor that has been preventing accidents, because you hardly do 70, you hardly do 60 kilometers per hour on the road because of their state of because of the current state of our road. Our road is really bad. Really bad in the sense that these roads are meant to be maintained. The people who establish FEMA, they do that because there is no way you won't be maintaining, or there won't be need to maintain this road. But let me say this, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's government has only focused on building new infrastructure. And that is not a way, that is not a sustainable culture. I've said it time without number that the president and his team needs to revisit their policy. They need to revisit the way they want to run Nigeria. The truth is, why I am so much impressed with the president's direct leadership. I am very much disappointed with some of his advisors, because you see that the government is only interested in taking up new projects, commissioning new projects. What about renewing? What about maintaining old infrastructure? I will score this government -0. This government has decided not to focus on maintenance of some of the infrastructure, and I don't know the reason. Sincerely, I'm still asking this question. If you're traveling from Abuja to Lagos, a journey that's supposed to be maybe 10 hours, 11 hours, or 12 hours, you'll be ending up spending 16 hours, 17 hours from Lagos to Abuja because of the state of our road. See, if you're applying from Ife, Ilesha, all those assets is completely a dread trap against what it used to be. The only time you enjoy smooth movement when you're traveling from Lagos to Abuja is from Abuja to some part of, maybe before you get to Katokarafi, before you get to Lokoja, and then also from maybe you're passing through Ondo. That road is really bad. If you're coming from Omuo, you are Kaba. Once you get to Kaba, the road is completely bad. When you get to Ilesha, the road is completely bad. When you get to, before you get to Ibadan, the road is completely bad. We cannot continue to risk the life of the road users by this neglect and abandoned by this government. And that is why I would like to advise President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's government to revisit their policy. Maintenance is very key. Otherwise, you'll be creating more problems while you are trying to solve new problems. To solve some problems, you'll be creating more. Instead of solving problems, you'll be creating more. And that is why I would strongly advise that FEMA needs to be funded. It's not just to have this budget in paper. That's what I'm telling you, that is audio. FEMA have budget allocation, but the federal government does not have enough money to give to FEMA, or decided not to fund FEMA. And if they are underfunded or not funded at all, how do you expect them to maintain the road? And that is where we have issue and challenge.
Now, Patriot Desmond, there's also an angle of monies owed to contractors. I don't know if you recall, but during the President Muhammadu Buhari administration, there was this issue under which Babajide Raji Fashola was invited to defend these issues on FEMA's creation back in 2018 and the monies approximately owed to contractors. That was when this debate about how much is needed to service our roads annually started. The federal government said that away from the 500 billion naira claim that was owed contractors, that it owed only 30 billion naira. How do we ensure transparency in this discussion?
That is where we have a major challenge. One of the major problems of Nigeria that has affected our development is corruption. We need to really intensify effort in curbing corruption in government agencies, not just FEMA. Sometimes you find out that the reason why federal government hold some of these contractors is because you budget a project of 1 billion, it will be overshoot to 5 billion. And in the course of the execution of this project, federal government would have given you maybe 2.5 billion and still owing you 2.5 billion, where you know, and the government knows, that what is enough to do that project is 1 billion. Now, they budgeted 5 billion for the project. Government pays 2.5 billion and decided to owe you 2.5 billion because in the real sense, the management of that project at that particular year, the director that is going to approve that you get the project knows that 1 billion is enough. But because of their own interest, they will overshoot it. They will give you half of 50% of the money, which is enough to do the project. At the end of the day, they will create a problem for the next government. And the next government will look at it critically that the budget is not, the proposal is not justified. But at that time, it is already a document that you must pay. because it has already been signed. So this is one of the major problems between the federal government, the procurement, the contractors, and this continuous owing of these contractors. Corruption needs to be dealt with. We cannot overcome this particular challenge until we deal with the issue of corruption. Corruption in our procurement, corruption in the execution of projects, and corruption among government agencies. If this can be curbed, I tell you that in the nearest future, we can overcome this issue of payment, lack of not payment, not funding budget, not owing of budget and all that. These are some of the things I would like to, share this morning.
Now, on your concerns rightly raised on corruption, another item on our discussion this morning is the electricity shortchanging. Now, the report this morning says, despite 1.5 trillion naira invested in metering, over 7 million electricity consumers are still underserved. I don't know, this speaks to our issue of our unending power discussions on how to ensure that we have stable power supply in Nigeria. This investment in metering, how do we...
Bito.
Yes, please.
Bito.
I can hear you.
It's so disheartening, so disappointing, and so frustrating that for many years we have decided to manipulate a system. No matter how you want to put it, 1 + 1 for me will give you 2. Solving electricity problem in Nigeria does not require rocket science. What we need is sincerity of purpose, vision, and commitment, eagerness to carry out what is right and do what is right. Do you know that there are so many communities in Nigeria that today have not been metered? If you visit even Lagos, let me use Lagos as an example. Lagos is the model for the 21st century Nigeria because of its advancement in terms of technology, in terms of policing, in terms of development. Lagos is a model. Do you know, Bito, there are a lot of communities and local governments in Lagos State that have not been metered. Now, this is not the issue of maybe accessibility or whether there is active business or something. Deliberately, the management of our electricity always creates these loopholes for their selfish gains. I tell you, Bito, there are a lot of Nigerians that are willing to invest in metering for the production, importation of meter. Deliberately, the federal government is not ready to partner with these individuals because some of the management within this electricity sector, they are making so much money from these unmetered assets across this country. Go to Ekpe. The number of people, Ekpe is in Lagos State. The number of houses in Ekpe that is using meter is less than 5% in the whole of Ekpe. Ekpe is seated in Lagos. That is where you have Dangote refinery. You see, it is a deliberate attempt by those who are saddled with the responsibility to meter these areas. They deliberately omit this area because of these estimated billings. You know, when you pay through meter, it is technology. You are now deploying the use of technology. So that will create more transparency and accountability. Even the government will know what NEPA is generating. But with this analog and estimated billing approach, you find out that a lot of billions of naira, a lot of trillions of naira across nationwide is still being diverted into wrong hands. And that is why the challenge with lack of electricity, shortfalls in electricity, cannot be swept under the cover, or we cannot overcome it at this material time, because the people who are managing this asset, they have decided not to be sincere with the country, and the management, the ministers of power that we have had in the last few years and the current one, they are not sincere enough. That is what I can tell you.
Now, Patriot Desmond, this is an issue that you rightly said has been with us for a while. And whilst there's, in your words, a lack of political will to get this carried out, there are still foreign aids coming in. The AFDB is pledged to help with Nigeria's rural electrification. At the point where there's also still increased revenue drives by the electricity players, the Band A characterization. How do we find respite despite what is ongoing and the interventions on ground?
Which respite are you still looking for? You said it, that there have been investors willing to support. There have been increments in the tariff that Nigerians pay. So what other things do we need than change of mentality, change of approach? This consumption syndrome, like a lot of people in position of influence that's pertaining our electricity, they are there with the mentality that they have to make a lot of money. Most of the ministers there, when they are in the Ministry of Power, the next thing they are thinking of is how to make a lot of money so that they can go and fund their election. Some of them have ambition to contest for governor in 2027, in 2031, in 2027, and the rest of them. Most of these ministers, most of these DGs, most of these chairmen and all that, first of all, what they have in their mind is not to solve problems. They are looking for avenue to make money for themselves. If we can tackle the issue of corruption, if we can tackle the issue of corruption, there is no bigger recipe for solving this problem than to kill corruption in this sector. Let us deploy the use of technology to solve our problem. What response has the Minister of Power told us or responded to Nigeria of the reason why our houses, even in the metropolis like Lagos, Rivers, Abuja, will not have meter? What do you know? There's Gishiri. If you go to Gishiri today, if you go to some part of Gishiri, you go to some areas in Federal Capital Territory, there is nothing like electricity. There is nothing like prepaid, even in the Federal Capital Territory. Why is it difficult? That technology is not more clear. The technology you require to produce meter is not as difficult as that of producing a cell phone and even a SIM card. It is more easier to the technology you need to deploy, the resources you need to deploy in producing meter is not as high with the technology you need to produce SIM card. But look at Nigeria. There are SIM card everywhere. There are cell phone everywhere. Why do we find it difficult to have meter everywhere? Simple human factor. Because of what? Entitlement, belief, ideology and philosophy of stealing, making money, selfish interest. All of them. What they want first is to make money for their private use before they will not solve national problem. And that is why Nigeria electricity sector has been characterized and have been facing a lot of challenges that has responded or contributed to this shortfall in electricity.
Now, Patriot Desmond, very immense points you've raised there.
Huge amount of money on something and you are not getting results. The federal government has spent billions of US dollars, millions of Nigerian naira, trillions of Nigerian naira in our electricity sector, but some few individuals are diverting this money.
Well,
and that is the problem. We don't even need foreign aids. We don't need foreign support. We don't need any foreign. Nigerians are willing. Nigeria prefer to sponsor, to pay for electricity than to buy generator, diesel, or fuel, or gas to power their sets, their generators, electricity generators. Nigeria prefer to pay more. Look at the case of Band A in some areas. Those who are using Band A, they still prefer to pay for this Band A increased tariff than to go and fuel their generator or power, or to use gas, or to use gas to power their generator sets. That is to tell you that Nigerians are willing to support the federal government to invest in electricity, but because of individual selfish interest, this is not coming to fruition. It's not materializing, and that is what we should deal with. We need willpower, political willpower. We need to face, how we should run Nigeria now is that sectoral approach. We don't need to face everything at the same time. We need to change our scope, the way we run Nigeria. If it is education we want to face for 6 months, all agencies of government, all parastatal, we work collectively to deliver the education sector. If it is aviation, everybody will put hands together. I'm talking about the tiers of government, the local government, the state government, the federal government, every executives of government. We put hands together to deliver the best in our aviation sector. If it is road, if it is works, every one of us will work collectively to deliver Nigeria from this hook. We cannot continue to be recycling problems from one government to another government. We cannot make headways. God forbid. One of the best things we can do right now is that we need to approach our development sectorally. Well, not just this scattered project here and there, and we are not still getting results. Since 1999, that we have returned to democracy. Now, we have not had tangible growth, tangible development because of selfishness and because of we cannot continue to do something the old way and expect a different result. If you want to get a new result, you need to try new things. And one of the things that I am proposing now is that we should face security. After we overcome security, we go to education. After we overcome education challenge, we go to works. After that, we go to infrastructure. We go to employment. This is how we can get results. Right now, we are not getting the desired result because we are not putting the right commitment and attention.
Now, Patriot Desmond, as we look to close this conversation, you talked about return to democracy and civil rule. Now, we're wrapping up the month of June, but conversations around the symbolism of June 12th continue to greet the front burner. Retired colonel and famous pro-democracy advocate, the Abubakar Dangiwa Umar, who was amongst the Nigerians that received national honors in line with their struggles of democracy, has talked about some Nigerians that need to be included. He's talked about 38 persons who he feels are deserving of national honors. He himself was initially not included in the 66 persons that the president mentioned on the Democracy Day commemoration. However, he was later conferred with a national honor. What do you make of his comments on some unsung national heroes who supported the late MK Abiola?
In the real sense, who are the heroes? Abito, who are the? It's the people of Nigeria. The people of Nigeria that stood firmly to face the persecution, the challenges that is brought upon them by the juntas, by the mischief, by military rulers, by the civil rulers. It is the Nigerian people that are the true hero. Now, after once that is a fact or established fact, it is not everybody who contributed to the June 12th saga or return to democracy or democratic institution in Nigeria that would be honored. I was listening to Omoyele Sowore, the founder of Sahara Reporters, why he was complaining that he also took part in the struggle for return of democracy and the June 12th saga in the 1992-1993 thereabout. quite a lot of people have been throwing shades here and there that they need to be honored. But for me, it is not about the honor. It is about how has this honor that the federal government is doing or giving to these few individuals reshaping our democratic scope in the present day time. The truth of the matter is that the government just needs to, the best recognition the government needs to give to these people and the larger Nigerian people is to do the needful to deliver the dividends of democracy to the Nigerian people, and by extension, those who feel should be singled out for recognition would have been affected positively. And that is where I want us to look at it. I want us to look at it this way, that yes, there are a lot of unsung, silent heroes, secret heroes that have contributed to the democratic development struggle in Nigeria that we don't know, even among the civilians, even among the military men. But for me, what I am going for, what I'm suing the government for, is that every Nigerian deserves this recognition, and the way to recognize Nigerians for their contribution for building democracy for 26 years and going is to deliver the dividend of democracy by ensuring that you fight corruption, you create employment opportunity, you fight insecurity, and you give merit to our deserving population. God bless you this morning, Bito.
Thank you very much, Patriot Desmond Fowobi. That's a nice place to leave it. We appreciate your objective contributions to the issues in the news, and also wishing you the best of the rest of today. Have a nice day.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now, Patriot Desmond Fowobi is the president of the Nigerian Nexus and has also set the ball in motion for our next conversation centered on political stories. Now, leading the lineup, the People's Democratic Party had earlier scheduled its NEC meeting for today, 30th June. But INEC's position on the much disputed National Secretary position of the party has served as a pushback on that earlier planned meeting. However, the PDP National Working Committee has scheduled a caucus meeting and is insisting on holding its NEC meeting despite this pushback and confusion. Now, there's also a conversation around the Wike versus Makinde factions of the PDP in that regard. That would be one of our main talking points, as we'll also look closely at the All Progressive Congress APC following the resignation of its national chairman, Dr. Abdullahi Ganduje, who was said to have resigned based on health grounds. But speculations are as to what region of the country is yearning most to fill the void created following his resignation, as names have been pitched from the Net Central region, which this morning one of such names is the Secretary to the State Government, Senator George Akume, who has dispelled those rumors, saying that he remains SSG. We'll tell you more about those political debates and other news making the rounds from the political scenes. Stay with us.